And so it actually, the show follows Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who, if you're a ufologist or even curious researcher into the paranormal, I'm sure you've heard of him. He was a brilliant astrophysicist and professor that was recruited by the Air Force to literally lead this investigation, this project. And, it's, I don't want to go too much into it, but, these are all talking points that we were allowed to mention. And so each episode draws from actual case files and blends, authentic historical events with some of the other mysterious events in the area. And, being with MUFON here in Washington State, who is really at the forefront of ufology, this is where modern ufology began with the Mount Rainier sightings. But Maurene, she'll talk about there were 17 or 18 other sightings that day alone, and hundreds reported over a 3-week period that not many people are talking about. So it seems like the momentum for ufology is picking up. And again, I want to reiterate our thanks to Ancient Aliens for really setting the stage or setting this all in motion. Because, that show is the most popular TV show on the History Channel. I think they're in the 11th season or something. But, without that momentum, we wouldn't be where we are today in ufology and in disclosure, which is really what we're after. We're looking for some disclosure here. And basically that is coming forward with the truth, admitting there is other stuff going on. There's advanced technology that's involved. There could be extraterrestrials involved. And it's just a fascinating subject to explore. So I don't want to talk forever, but I could talk forever about it because it is that fascinating. Wouldn't you agree, you guys?
Oh, yeah. No, it's
absolutely
amazing what's happening at the very last minute now, since even last December. I mean, I keep having to remind myself that it was only December of last year that the New York Times came out with the article confirming the existence of UFOs. I mean, that was the ATIP project. That was the very first time in our lifetimes, in lifetimes of anyone on the planet, that the actual federal government confirmed the existence of these things. But things have been happening so quickly since then. Matter of fact, you mentioned something, Zach, about Maurene coming up with some interesting sighting reports in her research that happened at the very same time that Kenneth Arnold cited the famous Mount Rainier UFOs on... Maurene, tell us the data on that again, and tell us the background that you came up with.
Well, I've been researching the UFO phenomena in Washington State and discovered, actually to my surprise, that Washington State has been on the forefront from the very beginning. In fact, all three western states, Washington, Oregon, and California, collectively, we probably get more sighting reports than the rest of the country combined. But Washington State, there were like two different flaps that occurred in the 1940s. One in 1945, where there were a number of intrusions over the protected airspace above Hanford, the nuclear facility plant where plutonium was being enriched for the atomic bombs that actually were dropped on Hiroshima. And there were a number of brilliant glowing red objects that were basically surveilling above Hanford. Navy planes were deployed, like the F-6F Hellcats were deployed from the Pasco Naval Air Base. This was in 1945. We were still at war, and they couldn't even begin to capture these. And, of course, then the objects would just simply disappear from radar. So we started off with a lot of activity in 1945, and I'd like to add that it's easy to simply say, oh, we've got all these sightings because of Hanford, but Oak Ridge in Tennessee had a nearly identical facility that was also enriching plutonium, and then while they had a few sightings over the facility, Tennessee as a whole doesn't get that many reports. So there's something special about Washington State that I'm trying to discern. But then you get into 1947, and I should start off with Maury Island, which occurred on June 21st, 1947, 3 days before the Kenneth Arnold sighting. And there's been great effort to debunk that story, but it also includes the first instances of the Men in Black.
Right.
But then once I discovered that there were 17 sightings in Washington alone on June 24th, that it gives the Maury Island incident a lot more veracity. But then that 3-week period between June 21st and I think July 9th, after Roswell took place on July 7th, so like within a day or two after that, within that 3-week period, there were 851 reports around the U.S., of which 81 were in Washington State.
Oh, my word.
I was flabbergasted, because this was information I had never seen before, and I kept wondering, gee, if I don't know it, I mean, no one really knows very much about it. So that's one of my big research projects coming up, is to learn more about these early flaps that were occurring, particularly between 1945 and 1947. And believe me, Washington State is at the forefront.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, funny you should mention the Maury Island incident, because many people don't even realize that was the very first modern-day UFO sighting, even before Kenneth Arnold's sighting.
That's right.
By the way, as a cool synchronicity, we had the producers, directors, and the writer for the Maury Island incident movie at our screening last night.
In the front row.
Right in the front row. Steve Edmondson, and Scott Schaefer were both there, and fascinated to see the Project Blue Book production that is coming down the road. And I think both of you would agree that the production money and value that have gone into this series is just astronomical. This is not just a television kind of, thing they put together. Each one of these episodes is almost like a movie in itself.
Exactly. Well, they're casting movie stars. They've got movie stars as actors.
Yes.
So you'll recognize them from some movies. Who is it? Aidan Gillen from Game of Thrones and The Wire.
That's right.
You have Michael Malarkey from The Vampire Diaries. I mean, these are stars.
Oh, yeah.
So it really uses their star power to help spread this message, And I think, the production quality was so well, and like Maureen said, how it kind of portrays maybe the government as the bad guys in a way. It's just real interesting how it's done that way. It's almost like soft disclosure in a way, which the New York Times article you mentioned earlier, Michael, which talked about the development and this organization called ATIP. And for our listeners that don't know what that stands for, that's the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. And that was a 12-year program that involved millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars. And so what was the government studying, and when can we expect, a lot of people never expect disclosure to happen. And so in a way that these little drops of soft disclosure that happen all the time, it can be, it'll add up, then maybe we'll have a full bucket one day and we'll get the full story, Yeah.
Matter of fact, I think you're both correct here. The fact that they have heavyweight stars in this new television series, and the fact they put so much money into the budget, and really, I think, done it correctly as far as, disclosing these cases and kind of getting into the details, it goes to show you that something major is coming down the road here. Someone has green-lighted the whole idea of disclosure and bringing the public up to speed, don't you think?
I agree.
Yeah,
Wouldn't agree more.
Could add that, in my opinion, see the New York Times article that appeared December 17th, 2017. I consider that soft disclosure. the really important information that was in, and even though it was on the front page of the online edition of the New York Times, not that many people actually read the New York Times. And the videos, the Tic Tac video, I mean, they got a lot of coverage, but the really important stuff in the New York Times article was basically just, I mean, it didn't get any coverage at all. I figure that's soft disclosure. The Project Blue Book reaches the public at large.
Right.
My neighbors, the people, my hairdresser, the neighbors across the street, the people at the checkout counter, those are the people who are going to be watching this television show. I'm considering that hard disclosure. I think it's actually reaching out to the public at large.
Wow.
Yeah, it really reminds me that they are trying to get ahead of a spin on this whole idea, because I have a feeling that something is maybe even pushing them to disclose. There's a reason why they're doing so many disclosure items in the mainstream media and television and entertainment so quickly now. I think there's something. Matter of fact, I don't know if you've heard, but Tom DeLonge and the ATIP program are actually studying these downed craft, and they call it metamaterial that they have from some kind of a UFO. And in January or February, I understand, the Canadian ufologist Grant Cameron told me this, that Tom DeLonge and Bob Bigelow are going to come out with an actual analysis, scientific analysis of what this material is made of. Believe it or not, they say the isotopic ratios of the material don't even come from this galaxy. They've been able to show that at this point, and also there's a strange effect of these materials that seem to have an effect on the human physiology somehow, just by being in close proximity of it. So, who knows what's going to be happening here very shortly after the first part of the year?
Hey, I can tell you what's going to be happening, and beware, Zach. The number of cases we get reported is going to skyrocket. So the investigative team I'm sure it's going to be for every MUFON chapter in the country, but the number of sighting reports we're going to have to investigate is going to skyrocket. We're going to be spending every night doing MUFON reports.
Oh, definitely. I think both of you guys are the vanguard of this whole idea of trying to get the public up to speed and being able to train the public as well to help you figure this out. I would imagine, matter of fact, if you want to make a little plea, both of you, of how people can get involved with MUFON in the future.
Sure, Maureen, I'll let you handle that.
Okay. Well, anyway, and again, my name is Maurene Morgan, and I am the Washington MUFON State Director. I'm very approachable, as Zach will know. You can, if you want to get involved with MUFON, you can go to the MUFON website online. There's menus where you can become a member. If you would want to consider becoming a field investigator, to volunteer, become more involved, you can contact me directly, and I would be delighted to talk to you. And you can contact me by using my MUFON email address, which would be MUFON, MUFON, .investigates@gmail.com. And simply add in there that you heard about me on Michael Hall's program. And I can talk to you about it, tell you how you can become involved, how you can become a member. And I would also like to reiterate that members are as important as field investigators, because without members, no one pays the bills for all of the websites. This is a very expensive operation to finance, and it's the membership that makes it happen. So that I would encourage you guys out there to consider not only becoming a member of MUFON, but also supporting Peter Davenport's National UFO Reporting Center, because without us, I mean, we're just about it out there. Without us, and public support, you have the deep state. I mean, there